Hey, it's Bill. Grab a coffee. This is going to be a long one because I not only want you to understand how the rich actually use debt to build wealth that lasts centuries, I want you to feel it in your bones so you can copy the exact playbook starting tomorrow morning. Every single week, without fail, somebody corners me at a climate conference, sends me a 3 a.m. DM on X, or yells across a hotel lobby, Bill, cut the crap. What's the real trick? How do a handful of families keep getting richer every single generation while the rest of us are running 80-hour weeks just to keep the lights on? I always give the same answer. There is no trick. There is no secret island meeting. There is no Illuminati spreadsheet. The entire game is sitting right there in broad daylight, but it is so painfully slow, so boring, and so completely opposite everything Instagram and TikTok scream at you that almost nobody notices it until they're 55 and suddenly realize the clock ran out. Today I'm going to hand you on a silver platter the single most powerful and most misunderstood tool in the history of money. The tool that took a skinny kid who grew up in a middle-class house in Seattle and turned him into a guy who privately owns more prime American farmland than almost any human alive, who isn't a Saudi prince. That tool is debt. Yes, I heard that groan. Bill Gates is telling me to go into debt. Calm down. I'm not talking about the debt you think I'm talking about. I'm not talking about $1,200 iPhones on 36 months, 0%, that somehow turn into 29% the second you miss a payment. I'm not talking about 84-month car loans on a $90,000 pickup you drive to a job you hate. I'm not talking about 6 credit cards maxed out on vacations, concerts, and takeout. That kind of debt is slow motion suicide. It's borrowing from your broke future self to pretend you're rich today. It is the fastest, most reliable way on earth to make sure your kids inherit exactly zero. The debt I'm talking about is the exact opposite. It is leverage. It is borrowing money at a low, locked-in, predictable cost to buy or control assets that throw off cash flow far higher than the interest, appreciate decade after decade, beat inflation like a drum, and here's the part nobody ever says out loud, get paid off by someone else while you keep 100% of the ownership and all of the upside. When you do it right, other people literally pay your mortgage while your net worth explodes. When you do it wrong, you're wiped out before your next birthday. There is no middle ground. Let me take you back to the very beginning so you know I'm not making this up. It's 1,975. I'm 19 years old, hair down to my shoulders, Coke bottle glasses, and I've just dropped out of Harvard. Paul Allen and I are running a company spelled with a space Microsoft out of a cheap motel in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have maybe $50,000 in the bank, 8 employees who are paid in pizza and dreams, and one absolutely insane opportunity. IBM flies in and says, we're launching a personal computer. We need an operating system in 12 months. The problem, we don't have the cash to hire the 10 extra engineers, rent lab space, or even feed ourselves for the 18 months it will actually take to deliver. Big banks look at 2 long-haired kids with 0 collateral and laugh us out of the building. So we do what any rational lunatic would do. We take on high-interest venture debt and short-term bridge loans against future receivables at 11%, 12%, sometimes 14%. That sounds insane in 2025 when mortgages are 6, 7%, but we ran the math cold. If we win the IBM contract, the return on that borrowed million in today's dollars would be measured in hundreds of percent in the first 24 months alone. We borrowed, we shipped MS-DOS, IBM sold millions of PCs, and that single leverage bet turned a motel room startup into the foundation of hundreds of billions of dollars. That is still compounding for my family half a century later. That was good debt. Fast forward to the 1,990 seconds, Microsoft goes public, I accidentally become the richest person most people have ever heard of, and the myth spreads that I pay cash for everything like some kind of cartoon billionaire. The exact opposite is true. Through my family office, Cascade Investment, we have used long-term, low-interest debt continuously for almost 4 decades, always against cash-flowing, recession-resistant, inflation-proof hard assets. The biggest example almost nobody understands is farmland. As I'm speaking to you right now in late 2025, Cascade owns roughly 275,000, 280,000 acres of the best farmland in the United States, spread across 19 states, Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Louisiana, Arkansas, California, Washington, you name it. The Land Report and other sources peg the portfolio at well over $1.1 billion on the books, but the real market value is considerably higher. The press loves to scream, Bill Gates is America's largest farmland owner, and then implies I wrote giant checks from my Microsoft dividends. I didn't. The overwhelming majority of every large block we ever purchased was financed with 20 to 30-year fixed-rate farm mortgages at interest rates that have ranged from 2.6% on the low end to 4.1% on the high end. Why would I tie up billions in cash when I can borrow at 3% against an asset that has returned 10, 12%, compounded every single year for 120 plus years? When you blend crop revenue, land appreciation, and inflation hedging, tenant farmers pay the mortgage, crop insurance covers the downside, inflation quietly erodes the real value of the debt, and 30 years from now, my kids own a continent's worth of the most productive soil on earth, completely free and clear, while the same capital I would have used to pay cash has been deployed somewhere else, earning another 8, 12%. That is the quiet, boring miracle of intelligent leverage. Another example most people completely miss, starting in 1997, Cascade began accumulating a massive private stake in Four Seasons hotels and resorts. By 2007, we partnered with Prince Al-Walid and Isidore Sharp and took the entire company private in a $3.8 billion leveraged buyout. In 2021, we bought out the Prince's remaining half for $2.2 billion cash, pushing our ownership past 71% and the enterprise value past $10, $12 billion. Almost every dollar of those acquisitions, plus the billions we poured into new hotels and renovations since then, was financed with long-term fixed-rate debt below 5%. Why? Because a well-located luxury hotel generates cash-on-cash returns of 8, 12%, while the underlying real estate appreciates 4, 6% a year on top. Guests pay off the loans, we keep the hotels and the growth forever. Same thing with the large stake we built in Canadian National Railway in the early 2010 seconds, borrowed at roughly 3% against shares that pay growing dividends and compound earnings 10, 12% a year. Same thing with waste to energy plants across Europe with Republic Services. Garbage collection is the most boring, predictable cash machine on the planet. With the hundreds of millions of John Deere equipment sitting on our farms financed through Deere Credit at rates we basically negotiate ourselves, the pattern never changes. Never borrow to consume, only borrow to own something that prints cash, faster than the interest clock ticks, grows faster than inflation, and has multiple layers of downside protection. Let me give you the analogy that finally makes it click for everyone I've ever explained this to. Imagine you're a farmer and you've spent your whole life saving to buy one beautiful, fertile acre. That acre is your entire net worth, your equity, your life savings. The sweet old farmer next door is retiring and says, "Kid, you can farm my extra 9 acres for almost nothing if you want." Amazing opportunity. Only problem, you only have enough seed to plant your 1 acre. So you walk to the seed merchant and say, "Lend me seed for the other 9 acres, I'll pay you back plus interest from the harvest." If anything goes wrong, take my original acre as collateral, The merchant looks at your flawless track record, sees your soil is the best in the county, and says, yes, you plant all 10 acres, the weather's good, you harvest 10 times the corn, you pay the merchant back his seed plus a fair profit, and you walk away with 8 or 9 times more corn than you ever could have grown alone. Next year you do it again, only now you have way more of your own seed to start with. That is good debt. Now picture the exact same farmer, same 1 acre, but this time you borrow from the merchant, not to buy seed, but to throw the most epic month-long party the county has ever seen. Lobster, champagne, fireworks, the works, harvest rolls around. You have 0 corn and you still owe the merchant. He takes your 1 acre, you're broke and sleeping on a park bench. Same exact tool, debt, two completely opposite lives. The debt didn't change. Your decision about what to do with it did. And here's the part almost nobody ever talks about. The wealthy don't just use good debt once and call it a day. We chain it generation after generation like a perpetual wealth machine. Start with one little rental house or duplex. You live like a monk, save 25% down, buy a modest property in a blue-collar neighborhood with good schools and jobs. The rent from the tenants covers the entire mortgage, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and still leaves you $200, $400 extra every month. 10 years later, the mortgage is half paid off and the property is doubled or tripled in value. Instead of selling and paying massive capital gains tax, you refinance, pull out 70-75% of the new equity completely tax-free, and use that as the down payment on property number 2. The tenants in property 1 now pay off the mortgage on property 2. 10 years later, you do it again. Property 2 pays for 3, 3 pays for 4, 4 pays for 8, 8 pays for 16. After 25, 35 years, you own dozens or hundreds of free and clear doors, throwing off 6 or 7 figures a year in completely passive income that your children will inherit and repeat the exact same process with. I have watched school teachers, firefighters, software engineers, and dentists quietly build $10, $50, million real estate portfolios doing nothing more exotic than this exact cycle. I just did the farmland version at 11-digit scale, but the mathematics are identical. Banks are not the enemy in this story. They are cold-blooded risk calculators. When you have no track record, no equity, no cash flow, you are a walking red flag. They either say no or charge you 18-29% on credit cards and title loans. That's how the system is designed to keep broke people broke. But when you spend 10, 15, 20 years paying every bill early, keeping your debt-to-income ratio under 30%, building equity, only buying cash flow positive assets, something magical happens. Your credit score climbs into the 800 seconds, your balance sheet looks like a fortress, and banks start calling you. They will literally beg to lend you millions or tens of millions at 4.5% fixed for 30 years because their algorithms now classify you as the safest borrower on the planet. The rich don't get better debt because we're smarter or luckier. We get better debt because we spent decades earning the right to it. So let's get painfully practical. Here is the exact step-by-step playbook you can start tonight, no matter where you are right now. Step 1, kill every single dollar of bad debt, credit cards, car loans, personal loans, buy now, pay later, student loans if they're high interest, everything. Use the debt avalanche highest interest first, or debt snowball smallest balance first for psychological wins, but get it to 0 as fast as humanly possible. That 18-29% interest is anti-compounding. It is wealth destruction on autopilot. You cannot win the game with that weight around your neck. Step 2, live on 50-70% of your take-home pay until it actually hurts a little. Track every single expense for 90 days straight. You will be stunned where the money is disappearing. Cancel subscriptions, cook at home, drive the paid off car another 5 years, shop at Aldi, whatever it takes. Redirect every saved dollar into a high yield savings account or short-term treasuries till you have 6 to 12 months of bare bones living expenses. That emergency fund is your first acre of fertile land. Guard it with your life. Step 3, once the bad debt is dead and the emergency fund is fat, start buying tiny cash flow machines. The simplest on earth is a boring total market index fund, Vanguard, VTI, or Schwab, SWTSX, or whatever. Automate $100, $500, $2,000, whatever you can, every single month, forever, no matter what the market is doing. You are now a part owner of thousands of the greatest businesses in history. Let Apple, Amazon, and Costco go to work for you while you sleep. Step 4, keep raising your financial IQ for the rest of your life. Read one great money book every single quarter. Start with The Millionaire Next Door. It will shock you how unsexy most millionaires are. Then Your Money or Your Life. Then The Simple Path to Wealth. Then Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you need the mindset kick. Then The Psychology of Money. Then The Little Book of Common Sense Investing. Learn to read a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow statement the way you learn to read English. It's not rocket science, it's just new words. Step 5, when you finally have 20-25% saved for a down payment on a boring single-family house or small multifamily in a working class neighborhood with jobs, schools, run the numbers until you want to cry. The rent must cover 100% of principal, interest, taxes, insurance, 8-10% for maintenance and CapEx, 5-8% vacancy reserve, and still leave you $150, $400 positive every single month after everything. If it doesn't, keep saving and walk away. When it does, buy it. Manage it yourself the first year to learn every pipe and wire. Then hire a good property manager if you want your time back. Treat your tenants like family. 5 to 10 years later, repeat the cycle. Your first deal will feel gigantic and terrifying, perfect. Terror means you left a huge margin of safety. That margin is the reason you will sleep through 2008 style crashes, pandemics, and furnace explosions without ever being forced to sell. Step 6, and only step 6, when you own multiple paid down or mostly paid down properties, a fat index fund portfolio, 0 bad debt, and a 780 plus credit score. And banks are offering you 30-year fixed money at 4-6%. Then refinance one property, pull out tax-free equity, and buy the next one. You have now graduated to the exact same leverage playbook that built every quiet real estate empire, every farming dynasty, and every billionaire balance sheet you've ever read about. Do it this way, and debt is not gambling. It is pure, cold, beautiful arithmetic working for you 2-4-7-3-6-5. Do it any other way, and it is financial suicide with extra steps. I have to be brutally honest about the downside because I've watched brilliant, hardworking people blow themselves up. If you borrow 90-100% to buy a speculative condo in South Beach because some YouTube guru says Miami only goes up, you will eventually get slaughtered. If you buy Tesla or Nvidia on 3-to-1 margin because you're in it for the long run, one bad quarter, and your broker liquidates you at the absolute bottom. If you buy the biggest house the bank says you can afford, one layoff or medical emergency, and you're underwater praying for a miracle, leverage has no feelings. It magnifies genius and it magnifies stupidity in exactly the same proportion. That's why the very first commandment is always margin of safety. If the bank pre-approves you for an $800,000 mortgage, buy the $450,000 to $550,000 house. If your spreadsheet says the rental will cash flow $300 a month, underwrite it at negative $300 and make sure you can still survive. Build buffers for vacancies, repairs, recessions, illness, divorce, wars, locusts, anything. The goal is to use leverage without ever needing to pray or get lucky. I'm almost 70 now, and these principles have not budged in 50 years. The world spins faster, headlines scream louder, crypto bros promise 1000x, influencers rent Lambos for the gram, but the math sits quietly in the corner, compounding for the tiny percentage who treat it with respect. Real generational wealth is not private jets, 30,000 square foot houses, or watch collections. Those are liabilities dressed up as trophies. Real generational wealth is owning quiet, boring, cash-gushing, inflation-resistant assets that produce more income than your entire family tree can spend, giving your kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids the freedom to swing for the fences, fail spectacularly, start companies, paint paintings, cure diseases, teach third grade without ever worrying about ending up broke. That freedom is the ultimate luxury. And intelligently used debt is the silent patient accelerator that turns an upper middle class outcome into a legendary dynasty in a single lifetime. So here is my direct, no filter message to you right now, wherever you are. Stop treating all debt like it's poison, but respect it like fire. Learn exactly when it warms your house and when it burns it to the ground. Start tonight. Kill the bad debt. Build your emergency fund. Buy your first tiny cash flowing asset with cash, then the second, then the third. Live below your means until it actually stings. Become the kind of person whose financial statement makes bankers drool. And one day, when the math is stupidly, obscenely, laughably in your favor, borrow against a great asset at a low fixed rate and watch the snowball you started turn into an avalanche. Your great-great-great-grandchildren will still be writing in the year 2225. That is the entire game. No shortcuts, no hacks, no one weird trick, just discipline, patience, and the guts to use the same tool the banks and the billionaires use, except on your terms, not theirs. I'm Bill Gates. I've lived this for almost 7 decades, and I am rooting harder for you than you can possibly imagine. Now, close this video, open your banking app, pay off one stupid debt, transfer whatever you can into an index fund, or save your first $100 of seed corn and go plant something that will outlive every single one of us. Your move. Let's go build something legendary.